In 2016, the Food and Drug Administration launched a federal investigation into the American Parmesan cheese industry. What they uncovered was not a minor labeling issue, it was systematic fraud. One of the best-selling grated Parmesan brands in the country, stamped 100% grated Parmesan cheese, was found to contain nearly 10% cellulose, that is, wood pulp. The president of the company that manufactured it pleaded guilty to federal charges, was sentenced to probation, fined, and ordered to pay more than $500,000 in restitution. The product is still on shelves today. Americans spend over $300 million a year on grated Parmesan cheese. Most of them believe they are buying cheese. What they are actually buying is a processed combination of part skim milk, preservatives, and anti-caking fillers held together by marketing copy and a legal loophole the FDA has never bothered to close. But not every brand is guilty. One brand on this list is imported directly from Italy, DOP certified, aged 24 months, and costs far less than most people assume. I spent over 40 hours auditing every Parmesan brand on the shelf to find the truth, and the results were not what I expected. Here is what makes all of this possible. In Italy, Parmigiano Reggiano is a protected designation of origin product. That means it can only be produced in 5 specific provinces within the Emilia-Romagna region. It must use raw, unpasteurized cow's milk from cows fed exclusively grass or hay. The only ingredients permitted are milk, salt, and natural calf rennet. Every wheel must age for a minimum of 12 months. And before it can be sold, a trained inspector from the Consorzio del Parmigiano Reggiano physically taps the wheel with a small hammer, listens for structural defects, and either grants it the fire-branded PDO stamp or rejects it entirely. The recipe has not changed in over 800 years. In the United States, none of that applies. The FDA considers the word Parmesan generic. Any cheese can carry the name as long as it meets a bare minimum standard of identity. No more than 32% moisture and at least 32% milk fat on a dry basis. That is it. No aging enforcement for grated products. No origin requirement. No restriction on fillers, preservatives, or processing shortcuts, as long as they appear somewhere on the ingredient label. Now here is the math that explains everything. To produce 1 wheel of real Parmigiano Reggiano, a dairy needs roughly 530 liters of raw cow's milk. At approximately 40 cents per liter, that is $212 in raw materials before a single person touches it. Then add 12 to 36 months of climate-controlled aging, warehouse rent, wheel-turning labor, and consortio inspections. You are looking at a product that costs real money to produce at every single stage. Or you can use pasteurized part skim milk, skip the aging, add cellulose powder at 4 cents a pound to simulate the dried granular texture, throw in some potassium sorbate to extend shelf life, and sell it in a canister for $3.49. That is the business model. And under American law, it is perfectly legal. The skip list. Let us start with the brands you should walk past. Skip brand 1, Kraft Grated Parmesan. Flip the canister. The ingredient list reads Parmesan cheese, parenthesis, part skim milk, cheese culture, salt, enzymes, close parenthesis, cellulose powder, potassium sorbate. Part skim milk is the first tell. Real Parmigiano Reggiano is made from whole raw milk because the fat content is what drives the complex flavor development during the aging process. Kraft removes that fat at the source because part skim is cheaper and processes faster. The cellulose powder is the second tell. In 2016, Bloomberg News commissioned independent laboratory testing on the top-selling Parmesan brands in America. Kraft tested at 3.8% cellulose. That is technically within a loosely defined acceptable range of 2 to 4%. But the question remains, why is there any wood pulp in a product labeled 100% cheese? The canister says 100% grated Parmesan cheese. The lab report says otherwise. Skip brand 2, Great Value Walmart store brand. The same Bloomberg investigation tested Great Value grated Parmesan and found cellulose content of 7.8%. That means nearly 1 out of every 12 spoonfuls you put on your pasta is not cheese. It is anti-caking filler disguised as a dairy product. But the ingredient list is not the worst part. Great value Parmesan was sourced from Castle Cheese Incorporated, a manufacturer based in Slippery Rock, Pennsylvania. Castle Cheese's president, Michelle Murder, pleaded guilty to federal fraud charges for selling products labeled as 100% Parmesan that were adulterated with cheaper cheeses, Swiss, mozzarella, white cheddar, and cellulose at levels far beyond industry norms. She was sentenced to probation, fined, and ordered to pay more than $500,000 in restitution. The company went out of business. The label says Parmesan cheese. The federal court record says fraud. Skip brand 3, essential every day. Also sourced from Castle Cheese Incorporated. Bloomberg's testing found this brand carried the highest cellulose content of any product in the investigation, 8.8%. Nearly 1/10 of the container was wood pulp. This is the brand that triggered the FDA's formal investigation into the domestic Parmesan industry. This is the product that led to a federal guilty plea. The label read 100% grated Parmesan cheese. The lab result read 8.8% cellulose. That is not a rounding error. That is a business strategy. Skip brand 4, Stella Parmesan Wedge. Stella markets itself as a premium domestic Parmesan. The packaging is elegant. The price point is higher. But flip the wedge and the ingredient list tells a different story. Stella uses pasteurized part skim milk instead of raw whole milk. It ages its cheese for approximately 10 months, 2 months short of even the minimum 12 months required for authentic Parmigiano Reggiano. And it contains natamycin. Natamycin is an antifungal antibiotic used as a mold inhibitor. It is explicitly banned in real Parmigiano Reggiano production. It exists in Stella's product for one reason. The cheese is not aged long enough to develop its own natural protective rind. Stella is owned by Saputo Incorporated, one of the largest dairy processors on the planet. Premium branding. Industrial shortcuts, read the fine print. Skip brand 5, 4C grated Parmesan. 4C blends its Parmesan with Romano cheese, a sharper, cheaper cheese that costs significantly less to manufacture. The Parmesan component is made from pasteurized part skim milk. The container also includes cellulose powder and potassium sorbate. Independent testing has flagged filler levels above the 2 to 4% range that even the industry itself considers acceptable. The front of the container says Parmesan. The ingredient list reveals a Parmesan Romano blend bulked with cellulose and preservatives. The consumer believes they are buying one product. They are paying for a different one entirely. Skip brand 6, Sargento shredded Parmesan. Sargento has built its entire brand identity around 3 words: real, natural, cheese. And technically, under FDA regulations, their shredded Parmesan qualifies. But the ingredient list includes pasteurized part skim milk, powdered cellulose, natamycin, and potato starch. The shredded format is the quiet part no one talks about. Shredded cheese requires more anti-caking agent than block or wedge cheese because the smaller pieces stick together. That means higher cellulose and starch content per serving by design. Sargento's Parmesan is aged for a fraction of the time real Parmigiano requires, resulting in less flavor complexity, lower nutritional density, and more reliance on additives to maintain texture. Natural does not mean traditional, and it certainly does not mean real. The kitchen test. Now here's how you audit what is already sitting in your kitchen. Pick up your container of Parmesan, flip it over, read the very first ingredient. If it says Parmesan cheese, parentheses, pasteurized part skim milk, stop right there. That is the tell. Real Parmigiano Reggiano will list only 3 ingredients: milk, salt, and rennet. No cellulose, no potassium sorbate, no natamycin, no enzyme-modified cheese, no potato starch. If your label passes that test, try this. Take a tablespoon of your grated Parmesan and place it in a dry, non-stick pan over medium heat. Real Parmigiano Reggiano will melt down into a golden, crispy, lacy disc. That is called a frico, a traditional Italian snack that has been made for centuries. It is the hallmark of properly aged cheese. Cellulose-heavy grated Parmesan will clump together, resist melting, and leave behind a white, powdery residue in the pan. That residue is the wood pulp, and no amount of marketing can melt it away. The real list, 1030 to 1500. Now, the brands that are actually worth your money. Real Brand 1, Parmigiano Reggiano, any Consorzio DOP certified brand. This is the real thing. 3 ingredients: raw cow's milk, salt, and natural calf rennet. Every wheel is aged a minimum of 12 months, with the best retail wedges reaching 24 to 36 months. Each wheel is inspected, tested, and fire branded by the Consorzio del Parmigiano Reggiano. The process has not changed since the 13th century. 530 liters of milk go into a single wheel. No additives, no preservatives, no shortcuts. And here is the part that most people get wrong: the price. A wedge of DOP certified Parmigiano Reggiano at Costco or Trader Joe's costs $7 to $9. That is roughly 40 to 60 cents more per ounce than the Kraft Green canister. For 800 years of unbroken tradition, 0 fillers, and a cheese that actually melts into a golden frico, that is not a premium, that is a bargain. Real Brand 2, Belgioioso. Belgioioso was founded in 1979 by Enrico Orecchio. He was a 4th-generation Italian cheesemaker from a family that had been producing cheese in southern Italy since 1877. Orecchio emigrated to Denmark, Wisconsin, chosen specifically for its dairy farming infrastructure, with one mission: make authentic Italian-style cheese using American milk and Italian methods. Belgioioso uses fresh milk from local Wisconsin farms, vegetarian rennet, and 0 fillers or preservatives. Their Parmesan is aged over 10 months. It cannot legally carry the Parmigiano Reggiano name because it is not made in Emilia-Romagna. But the ingredient list is clean, the process is transparent, and the product is in a completely different league from anything on the skip list. A 5-ounce wedge costs roughly $5 to $6. That is competitive with the premium shelf and leagues ahead of anything sold in a canister. Real Brand 3, Trader Joe's Parmigiano Reggiano, the value play. Trader Joe's imports this product directly from Emilia-Romagna. It carries the Consorzio DOP Firebrand stamp. 3 ingredients: milk, salt, rennet. Aged a minimum of 24 months. This is the exact same cheese you would find in an Italian market or a European specialty shop. The only difference is the store it sits in. Trader Joe's built its entire model on importing high-quality staples at scale and cutting the middleman. Their Parmigiano Reggiano is priced at approximately $8 for an 8-ounce wedge, 30 to 40% less than most specialty cheese retailers for the identical DOP certified product. If you want real Parmesan at the best price in America, this is it. Here is what all of this comes down to. A company can put the word Parmesan on a container of part skim milk, wood pulp, and chemical preservatives, and it is perfectly legal. The FDA has no meaningful standard for the name. The label is not required to tell you how long the cheese was aged or whether it was aged at all. The ingredient list is the only place where the truth survives, and most consumers never flip the container. Now you know what to look for. Your health is not a commodity for these corporations to optimize. Your grocery budget is not their profit margin to exploit. And the $3 difference between a canister of cellulose and a wedge of 800-year-old tradition is the best investment you will make this week. The Food Tell because you have the right to know the truth. Subscribe for more.